Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here. I thought I'd do another book review, this time on a book that I've recently read and it's currently out in the shops or at your local library. Now I had to reserve it at the library. There is a long list of people who needed to read it, so it is quite a popular book. What's the book? Well, it is Ian McEwan's Machines Like Me, and you can see it. There's this freaky cover of a robot, male and female robot. Let's call them Adam and Eve. Now, some people who love Ian McEwan, I've got a whole heap of his books. This is about his 17th book that he's written. Some people didn't like it. There's mixed reviews, but you know, that's the beauty of reading books. You're not going to like every book that everyone else likes. People read things differently, and I actually enjoyed this book. It got me thinking about what I would do in a situation where a robot, a human-looking robot, comes into my house, my domestic scene. I mean, I'm not talking about Siri and Cortana and all the other gizmos and gadgets that we have. We're talking something that looks like a human, interacts with a human, becomes smarter every day, and is becoming self-aware. How would you deal with this? Anyway, they were the questions that I had in my head. So what is this book about? It's set in the alternative 80s, not the 80s that we knew it. So there's no frizzy hair, no neon jewelry, no Choose Life t-shirts or knickerbockers. This is a 1980s where the Falklands War was lost, thousands of people died. Margaret Thatcher is in power. There's a lot of disharmony, discontent on the streets. People are rioting. People are losing jobs. So it's effectively like today. It's kind of like today, but 1980s. At the same time, Alan Turing, it's the guy, the Enigma guy, is alive. In real life, he actually committed suicide in the 1950s, but Ian McEwan has made him a character in this book, someone who's interested in artificial intelligence. So I love the idea that Ian has created this alternative world, an alternative 1980s, thus ensuring that this book will not date. So what's the story? Charlie, the protagonist, Charlie is someone who works on the money markets. He sits at his computer, he buys and sells short on the money markets. He makes his money from the markets. He comes across an inheritance from his mum and decides to blow it all on buying one of these humanoid-looking robots called Adam and Eve. So he chooses an Adam, he buys him for £86,000 and he gets him into his apartment and charges him up just like you would charge a mobile phone. Although the image of having this robot cabled up and charging slowly really freaked me out. Now, Charlie also is in love with the girl next door, the girl upstairs called Miranda. She is 10 years younger than him. She's a student. So it's really about how this human-looking robot is integrated into their domestic life and how they interact with it. Charlie interacts with it in some way and Miranda differently. And one example was when Miranda, there was a sex scene in here, when Miranda actually spends a night with Adam. Ooh, I couldn't even fathom that thought. Anyway, and so she spends a night with a robot and Charlie gets up in arms about it and then he says, well, this is, how do I deal with this? This is like an affair. This is, you've gone behind my back. You've slept with someone else. But she didn't see it that way. She saw it as just another sex toy. So that all of a sudden my mind was going, but I'm not going to go there. It's not about just that scene. There were other elements scattered throughout the book that made you think, how would you deal with this situation? So one example was Charlie was at a park and he meets a young boy and he's named Mark. And this young boy has parents who are drug addicts. They really don't want him. And there is a bit of, I guess, a standoff. And as a joke, Charlie says, I'll take Mark off your hands if you need to. Here's a card. He gives him their address, a whole bit. But unbeknownst to him, they drop the kid off, don't they? So Mark now is introduced. Now Mark is a young boy who's running around, he's precocious, he's playing, he's totally free. Adam, the robot, doesn't know how to handle this. And what he sees in the young boy is the young boy Mark loves to play, and when he plays, he has Miranda's affections. Now, in the meantime, Adam thinks he's falling in love with Miranda, like the robot thinks he's falling in love with Miranda. But as I read this, I'm thinking it's kind of vacuous. It's empty. It's not real love. He's programmed to think that way. Anyway, so what happens is Adam falls in love with Miranda. He's competing with Miranda's attention, but he's seeing that the little boy, just through his play, has more of Miranda's attention. I'm going to come back to that, especially because there's a theme through this. Now, as Adam becomes much more self-aware, he starts to, well, in his chips, he thinks he's got memories, he thinks he's in love with Miranda, he thinks he, understands the world, but he's not really understanding the world. The more he sees around him, the more he doesn't understand of the world. And all of his logic and exact ways of looking at things and the detail. And you got to imagine, this is a robot, and this is kind of like Google on legs. He's picking up, he's got all this information. He could look at a plant and he'd tell you exactly what it is. He can recite Shakespeare, he could recite poems. And yet there is something humanistic missing from it. It's kind of empty. So over the time, there is a backstory here where Miranda is hiding a secret, and of course Adam knows what that secret is because he can trawl through the internet and pick out certain elements that had happened, and he could put two and two together. So he warns Charlie that Miranda has a secret, and indeed she has. Now, I'm not going to spoil that secret, because what happens is, what the android does is he basically rats on Miranda to the police, right, about this particular secret, which I'm not going to say what it is. And in Adam's head, he thinks he's done the right thing. To Adam, the world is seen as what is good, what is truthful, but not exactly what is right, okay? What is good, what is truthful, what is law. So he goes down the exact letter of the law. But sometimes in human relationships, we've got contradictions. We make we make little exceptions for the people that we love, and we go through life like that. But this robot didn't get it. He didn't understand that. Instead, it was all bang down the letter of the law. So he puts Miranda's name up to the police, and there's a story there about Miranda obviously serving time, but it's all very rushed towards the end. I'm not going to say the story. There's a whole heap of other things in there. What really stood out for me was the kind of questions that was coming up to me. So what would I do if I had this human-looking robot in my house, in my domestic scene? The interaction with my husband, would I treat this human-looking robot any differently? Now, these robots were becoming more and more self-aware. And what that means was they were picking up and not really understanding the world around them. In the book, Ian McEwan said that 25 of these were made. So there were 12 Adams and 13 Eves. And I really liked how he used the uneven number, similar to more women in the world. Maybe the fact that we've got another X chromosome, XXXY, I don't know. I thought that was a play. He also mentioned that all the Adam and Eves were snapped up with 4 females going to Riyadh. Make of that what you will. And there were other things like the more self-aware the robots became, the more disheartened and disillusioned with the world they became. And so some committed their own suicide. They switched themselves off. One obliterated their mechanics or their electronics completely and just became a dumb machine, simply because they understood the world as one thing, but we as humans, we understand contradictions. We know that it's not like that. And they just couldn't comprehend one and the other. They couldn't align it. So for me, I love this book. I love Ian McEwan's writing anyway. This actually got me thinking about, I guess, relationships with robots. Not that I'm going to have a robot anytime soon. We've got them in our house with Siri and Alexa and Cortana. I talk to mine every day, but they're not in a human format. So it got me thinking, if they were more humanoid, how would I react to them? How would I interact with them? Would I be nasty to them? I don't know. I don't know. This is stuff that is freaking me out. There is the element of Alan Turing as well. He plays a role in this, and towards the end, there's a bit in the book where Adam gets back to Alan Turing. I'm not going to say how because it's going to spoil the book. And Alan rips into Charlie for doing something to Adam that Alan Turing believes he shouldn't have done. And that made me question about, well, you know what? I was on Charlie's side. I was on Charlie's side. But there was another perspective. Alan was seeing that the fact that these are sentient beings, they become much more aware, so therefore they have rights and privileges, and who are we as humans to affect this? That was the biggest question for me, and that is something that we're probably going to be exploring in future years. Probably already now. Anyway, that is it for my review. I do hope you enjoy it. I thoroughly recommend this. Do not kind of look at the naysayers and say it was crap. Make of it what you will. I did enjoy this. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to have my cup of coffee now, which I've left to go cold. I hope you have a great day, and on to the next book. Bye for now.